Good evening and welcome to OrthoFi's Industry Expert webinar. Tonight we're going to be featuring Dr. Bob Skopek. We have a really exciting night for those of you who joined us. And for those of you who this is your first time joining us for one of our webinars, I want to tell you a little bit about that. The format is that we bring some of the industry's most trusted experts and we just spend an hour learning from them. So this past year, pretty much all of 2023, our primary focus of this series has been to take our content from Nexus, which is OrthoFi's annual business meeting, and we've just converted those into 1-hour learning sessions that we have shared with the industry. So Nexus is our business event that we do every year in February. At the end of this webinar, we'll give you a QR code to get a discount to attend that meeting. And Dr. Skopek's presentation tonight is an example of the kind of presentations that we present every year at Nexus. We've got an exciting lineup again this year in February in Denver. Great time to be in Denver at the Gaylord Resort. So I'll share a little more with you about that toward the end of the webinar. Also, throughout the webinar, you will be able to submit your questions, and I want to make sure that you're using the Q&A, not the chat. Our team will be consolidating those questions, just kind of keeping track of them, and then Dr. Skopek will end about probably 8 to 10 minutes early, and we'll be able to ask those questions live and get some feedback from him at the end of this webinar. So be sure, as you hear something that you just want to dive a little deeper into, just pop the question into the Q&A and we'll collect those and get to those at the end of the session. So let's get on to the good stuff. Dr. Bob Skopek attended the University of Wisconsin as the first from his family to attend college, and honestly having no idea what he wanted to do with his life. And now he sees that as a huge advantage. After considering both medical school and engineering, Dr. Skopek finally decided to pursue dentistry at the University of Minnesota. He actually stayed in Minnesota for 3 years, and he was in a general dentist practice and then moved on to orthodontics and finished his degree in that. He's been the owner of Skopek Orthodontics since 2000 and Clear Cut Orthodontics since 2022. Both of those were originally startup practices, and Clear Cut is now 100% clear aligner orthodontic practice in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Dr. Skopek is currently an Invisalign VIP Diamond Plus provider. He's alumni of Dawson Academy, the Pankey Institute, and Spear Educations. And he is a published writer. He's been a guest on several podcasts, including New Patient Group, The Propreneur, and Orthopreneurs. But those of us at OrthoFi, we really know Dr. Skopek for his work that he did originally with Brian Wright a couple years ago when they presented on the topic of the $2 million two-employee practice. And that was a presentation that they did several years ago at Nexus, and just really caught our eye on how, how he has capitalized on the disruption in our industry and has just turned it to do great things. And, he's more excited now than ever to be an orthodontist, and we are so excited to hear what he's going to share with us tonight. Welcome, Dr. Bob Skopek. We're glad to have you with us.
Well, thank you. And I always love the introductions because I always feel so important when you give me those introductions.
You're important.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, I'm going to share the screen.
Perfect. And I'm going to leave you with it. We're excited to learn from you, and then I'll join you toward the end and we'll get some Q&A.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. And again, thank you very much. I really do enjoy speaking for you guys because I can kind of say whatever I want and you don't, complain about that, which is awesome. Let me figure
We
this
love
out.
that, actually.
Yeah. Well, thank you. All right. Hang on. I got to figure this out. There we go. All right, good. We working?
We've got it. Perfect.
Okay, cool. All right, good. And it's interesting because I've never used the title more than twice. This is a brand new title And I love the wording, and the wording of the title always kind of inspires me to change the talk a little bit. The word I love in this is leaning into change. What does leaning really mean? I mean, it could mean a lot of things. If you're a building, it could mean this. If you've had a long day and you're tired, well, it could mean this. Now, if you're an entrepreneur leaning into change, what does that really mean? And I absolutely love this quote. It's from the late Peter Drucker. It's an iconic quote. And I use it quite a bit when I talk because I think it just sums everything up so nicely. So what I'm going to do today is this whole talk is going to revolve around this quote. And the quote really has three very important words to it. The first one, searches. Entrepreneur searches for change. You don't sit around, you don't watch it go by, you don't acknowledge that it's happening somewhere. You get out there and look for it, and you search for change, and you go after it. Second one, it's response. If you're going to find change somewhere, it's going to be weird. It's going to be scary. It's going to be a little freaky. So you're going to have to respond to it somehow. And the third word then is opportunity. If you can find it, if you can respond to it, you have almost unlimited opportunities in your business. So who am I really? Marla said it pretty well, actually. I'm just a blue collar kid from the Midwest, first generation to go to college. And I've taken a very jagged path to where I am. I did general dentistry for a few years. I have published in peer-reviewed basic science journals. If you want to fact check that, it's RJ Skopek, not Bob. I've been an associate. I've been a partner. I've been in corporate. I've done the production line, private practice. I've taken a pretty jagged path to where I am. And yeah, we started Skopek Orthodontics from scratch in 2000 and Clear Cut in 2022. And I have all the same academic accolades everybody else does. None of us are orthodontists unless we did well in school. And now, importantly, there's no right or wrong to any of this. There's opinions. And there's plenty of things I do and I don't believe in, but I'm not a hater. And there's no right or wrong, and that's important to know. If you want to send me any hate mail, I'm on LinkedIn fairly regularly. A lot of people will message me on LinkedIn. bobskopek@comcast.net is my personal email. I will see that if you send it there. Now, these are the companies I get paid by. These are mine or my wife's. And these are the companies I consider myself a KOL for. Now, I do get paid. I don't know even know if I'm getting paid tonight, but I do get paid for some of these. But I will never sign anything other than what I present as factual to the best of my knowledge. I'm not here to sell you anything. I don't consider myself a KOL for any company. My goal really today is I want to get you to think a little bit. I want to inspire you to think about some big picture principles about owning an orthodontic business, especially owning an orthodontic business. Now there's all this crazy change going on. And I'm going to do that primarily by going through my business model. I'm going to show you some inspiration in the process for getting there, some of the challenges, clinical, staffing, the profit, some marketing concepts, some books, and I'm going to show you some of my numbers over the last 8 years. But I'm going to show them to you from a little different perspective. And first and foremost, and most importantly, I'm going to use words like profit and business and customer tonight. But don't misinterpret anything I say. Because the foundation of what we do is that we need to diagnose, treatment plan, and execute clinical orthodontic treatment better than anybody else out there. So please don't think that I've lost touch with this and this isn't important to me, because this is the foundation. All right, so let's start with the first part of the quote, number one. I wasn't going to put these numbers in, but I think this little kid is so cute in this picture, I had to put this in. All right, so number one, searching for change. Think about how you're out there searching for change. And honestly, if you're on this tonight, and if you're listening to this, you're probably searching for change. But get out there, look for it, read what you can read everything you can read, listen to everything you can listen to. Agree, disagree, get out there, look for change. Now, this is a picture of me that, believe it or not, this is what I looked like in 2000. We were a startup in 2000. I was Invisalign certified in 2000. Was all excited. I'm still all excited about clear aligner orthodontics, and got myself in the business section, which was pretty cool as a startup. So that was my first change I really found. And I went out looking for it. I thought it was really cool. But then you got to respond to it. You know, it's weird. It's different. There's all kinds of crazy stuff with those clear aligners. So how did I respond to it? What did I need to respond to in the last 20 years? Well, first of all, clinically. Again, what we do clinically, I believe, is our foundation. And that's the number one thing we need to focus on. So I had to figure out how to move teeth with plastic. Business had to be profitable. Any of these widgets you buy, any of these companies that you buy their product, there's a cost to that, 100%. And depending on how you run the business, all of a sudden you're making less money. And that's a big problem. So I had to figure out how to be profitable. And then once you do that, you have to keep customers coming into your business. You have to keep them coming. So I had to figure out marketing. The whole customer acquisition component of what we do is so important. We need to get new customers and generate new business all the time. So first thing, I had to figure out my clinical results. And this is not a clinical lecture, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I am going to show you some teeth. I'm just going to show you some teeth just so you know I do move teeth around. So my history, this guy came to me about 2003. This is early in the game. This was only a few years into doing this. Little crowding, deep bite. He has some missing buys. He was treated before, not getting any braces. I think he actually saw that newspaper ad. So wanted him fixed with aligners. So on the right, you know, we lined him up. We made him straighter. He still has a deep bite. The arch form kind of sucks still. I don't like the root angulation so much. So he was happy, but I really wasn't. You know, I wasn't going to spend my career doing that level of work. I don't think that's a high level of work. But things have evolved. The tool has been engineered. I've taken hundreds, if not thousands, of continuing education hours. So fast forward 10 years, and she comes in, deep bite, crowding, arch forms suck. She's got, you know, irregular teeth. Now, this case I'm proud of, and I like this result. And I really don't think I could have done any better on this case with braces than I did with aligners. The first case, I could have treated better in braces. This case, I don't think I could have. So she's happy, she's thrilled, she likes it, and I'm actually happy with this. I need to be able to provide clinical results as good as any other tool. Otherwise, I'm not happy with it. This guy comes in, he's a bunch of other opinions, extraction, surgery, didn't want any of that. So we lined him up with the aligners. And again, I'm proud of this result. I don't think I could have done any better with braces than I did with the aligners. Again, he's happy, I'm happy. Some interdisciplinary cases. Dentist needed this occlusal plane leveled, wanted that bye intruded. We gave her some Ponix because she's missing teeth. We painted it in the aligners. We leveled the occlusal plane. I don't think I could have set this case up in an interdisciplinary case any better with braces. Impacted canines we figured out how to do. We put loops and hooks in certain places. I'll change the force vector now and then to pull things in a different direction. Pull things approximately where they should be, and then put an attachment on that. We figured out how to do orthognathic surgery with the new crazy tool. Here's a patient. Here's where she came in. Here's the hooks I put on for the surgeon before surgery. And I do what the surgeon wants pre-surgical. Surgeons all have their own different methods to do this, but this was her pre-surgery, post-surgery. And I look for any excuse to put this picture in, not because of the smile or the face, but this was an airway case. She was a bimaxillary advancement, and she was upper 20s in this picture. And she said, I haven't been able to breathe since I've been a teenager. I haven't slept well since I was a teenager. She's been through ENTs, through surgeries. And if you look at this kid's eyes on the left and the right, I mean, that's a person that's not sleeping and looks like they're beat up on the left versus someone that is sleeping on the right. It's just it's anecdotal, but it's just so powerful to me. So my change response to the clinical and Invisalign or brand X or whatever brand you use can't do it. Well, I agree with that. You know, it doesn't do anything. It really doesn't. And that's part of the change in the mindset that we went through. But I do believe I can provide now the same level of clinical care with clear aligners as I can with braces, because that's what I've focused on and I've learned how to use. And any orthodontist can do that if they use the tool. It's whatever your tool of choice is that you provide the best care with. So my next change I had to respond to was the business. You know, it's really cool and I'm pretty comfortable with this and it's great, but I'm not making any money anymore. And all the money you pay to these companies, including OrthoFi, everybody's going to tell you it's just too high to be profitable. I can't afford that fee. I can't pay that fee. So I like this picture for my business journey because it's kind of rough. It's not smooth. It's kind of wavy. And that's really how it's been. But let's start a little bit with payroll and staffing, because payroll and staffing is traditionally the biggest expense. And we're currently have this staffing crisis that everybody's talking about. So how did I deal with that? And how did I pay for all the other stuff? Well, again, we started here as a startup. 10 years later, 2010, here's us. Now, again, I'm happy with where we grew to. I feel like we had a large traditional practice, nice big team. At this point in 2010, we were probably seeing 80, 85 a day. Life is good, having fun. Now, by 2015, we were starting to dwindle a little bit. And quite honestly, I've been fortunate that I haven't fired a lot of people throughout my career. But when people left for babies, for moving, for whatever, I just started introducing efficiencies into the business rather than replacing them with people. And we're starting to dwindle by 2015. Now, this is us heading into the pandemic. And this is the point where people start to get up and walk out of the room, or they start to shut the computer off, and don't do that. Because they think, well, you know, I'm not going to watch this guy that went out of business over 20 years. But the reality of this is that the total revenue we had with this big team was less than half of what it is today. These guys, plus technology and plus outsourcing, which we're going to talk about, is giving us more than double the revenue as that big traditional team. So what's the point? Just get rid of the people, just get rid of them, buy every product from every rep that comes into your office and get rid of the people. Plug it in and just let it go to work. Absolutely not. That is not my point. That is never my point. The people are the most important investment you have. The people are what makes the technology and the AI and all the cool stuff work. I just want fewer people working with the technology. Now, this is a video that I love, Damon John, Shark Tank, that I ran across.
Did you decide to never have more than 50 employees again?
You need these systems in place. And I didn't have those systems in place. And I realized that I was spending, as we just talked about, remember, work started at 12 o'clock on a Sunday. Why? Because I was solving more problems that I could have had a system in place that would have solved at least 50% of them. And that is when I said, I just don't want to do it anymore to that extent. I want to know every single one of my employees. And, I stopped knowing the people. We started having birthday cakes. At first when you have 20 people, 20 times a year, happy birthday to you, have a birthday. At 350 people, it was a cake every day. Happy birthday, dear Kwame. Who the hell is Kwame? I didn't know him anymore. And I just didn't like it. So it was just my personal decision. I had to take some serious inventory. I talk to Robert all the time. Robert, I want to get to 10,000, 20,000. Why? Whatever it is, I don't know. I have to say my ego and put it aside. I don't want to command or be in charge of that many people. I want a little crew. I want to be happy.
Put your ego aside, take a personal inventory. I think those are key words, and I think that is essentially a vision. Put it aside, figure out what you want, where you want to go. Again, I love this small little crew. I want this small little crew. So what exactly did I change? How did I reduce it? How did I reduce the staff, double the production? Well, first step, again, it's vision and goals. Just like Damon John said, what do you want? Do you want the big volume practice with 200 employees? Do you want the smaller one with less employees, more technology? There's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. It's whatever's right or wrong for you, but you have to have the vision and the goals. The next step, and this is important. So if anybody's dozing off already at this point, you got to wake up, because this is the important part. You have to create a business model to support your vision. Okay, you create a model to support your vision. It's the fundamentals and it's the foundation of what you do. Okay, that's a key step in all of this. You don't buy parts and try to plug it in. You want to create that model that fits your vision. And when you do that, when you start to create that business model, you're going to have to figure out your operations, your systems, and your workflow. What good is a digital workflow if you want to do alginates and chart on paper? You have to have your vision and your model, and then you figure out your workflow and your operations and your systems and fit that. Now, when you start doing that, all of your priorities, all of your training, your time management, the way I spend my time throughout the day now is completely different than it was 10 years ago. And as you do that, your culture changes. And every business has a culture, good, bad, or otherwise. Every business has a culture.
Keith, are you playing indoor with us? All right, ask.
Good. Okay. And as you get your operations, your workflow, your culture, your time management, all of a sudden you get a brand. You're known for something. That all translates into who you are, what you do, and you get a brand. Now you have to market your brand, because my brand's different than your brand. Your brand's different than my brand. Not that they're better or worse or good or bad, but you go through these steps in this process, you're going to get a brand. You're going to be known for something, which is very cool. And then once you get all that, you got to look at your accounting, because some numbers that meant a lot before don't mean as much anymore. Some numbers that used to be high now are low, and vice versa. So you have to look at the financials, you have to look at the accounting and figure out what numbers, what investments, and what expenses are important in your business model. Okay, so the three big changes I've made to mine through the years. First one, I consider myself a clear aligner orthodontist. I've always been fascinated with moving teeth with plastic. That's my thing. Now, we use Invisalign, but I don't do Invisalign. I'm a clear aligner orthodontist that uses a tool. And I think that's important. I think we get way too hung up on I do this or I do that. I'm a clear aligner orthodontist. That's part of my business model. We provide our patients with Skopek Remote. Skopek Remote has convenient communication channels, texting, emailing, virtual consults, and remote treatment monitoring. Now, dental monitoring is one of our components in that, but we don't put people on dental monitoring. We provide them with Skopek Remote, and Skopek Remote is part of my business model. I outsource as many tasks as I can. Outsourcing is part of my model. OrthoFi is one of our main partners in my outsourcing model. I used to have 2 financial coordinators. Now my treatment coordinator spends about an hour a week on that stuff. I give it to them to do. I don't have to worry about hiring, firing, quitting, training, and going in that loop. I don't like that loop. RightChat answers most of our new patient calls. We have an HR company, some media companies, and some financial companies. And I'd love to tell you that I came up with all this stuff and I'm really smart and this is great, but if you haven't read the 4-Hour Work Week, read, skim, watch a YouTube video, something on the 4-Hour Work Week. This book essentially outlines how to run an efficient business. Some of the key points of that book, you got to look at your bottom line income. The top line income, feeds your ego. The bottom line is what feeds your kids. What are you taking home at the end of the day? Delegate, automate systems, outsource tasks. And this was a very impactful one for me. Thinking about your hourly wage, not your annual income as a business owner. And mine will always be an approximation, no question. I don't punch a clock, I'm not going to punch a clock. But when you start to think about how much time you put into it and how much you get back out, it's pretty impactful. It really is. Think about that. Think about how much money you make per hour and if it's worth it. And I think most importantly, don't spend your day busy being busy. The world likes to spend time busy being busy. And this is another great little book, Long Game by Dory Clark. And I'm going to play a video from the author who talks about busy being busy.
We live in a world that valorizes work, accomplishment, busyness. And there's real upside to that. There's real value. But there's also a downside. There was a study done a while back by the Management Research Group of 10,000 senior leaders. And they asked them, what is key to your organization's success? And 97% said long-term strategic thinking. And yet, in a separate study, 96% of leaders were surveyed. And they said they don't have time for strategic thinking. What is going on? For so long, almost all of us have said we want desperately to be less busy. And yet we keep making choices that put ourselves in the position where we're just as busy as we've always been. What is going on? In some cultures, American culture chief among them, busyness is actually a form of status. When we say, oh, I am so crazy busy, what we're really saying is a societally accepted version of, I am so important. And the truth is, that feeling can be hard to give up. It turns out it is very hard for the human mind to deal with conditions of uncertainty. And in modern life, there's a lot of it. Sometimes it's easier, frankly, to just double down and keep doing more of what you're already doing. That might not be the best answer, but it's an answer, and it removes uncertainty. Sometimes we use busyness as a way to numb ourselves out. For a lot of us, there are things we sometimes don't want to face. What we're really looking for with work is an anesthetic. For many of us, we get trapped in the pattern of busyness, of overwork. We have to get real and acknowledge what is actually behind some of the busyness that is filling our days. We need to recognize that real freedom is about creating the space so that we can breathe, the space so that we can think. Ultimately, real freedom is about choosing how and with whom we want to be spending our time.
I love that little video, and I used to try to articulate that and say that, but she does so much better than I do. I love that little video. So I ran some of my numbers over the last 8 years, and I did it a little differently with some big picture concepts, a little bit of the 4-hour work week concepts. And I picked 2015 versus now because 2010, basically, we're 15 plus employees. We're about 5% clear aligners. No outsourcing, everything was in-house, the hiring, firing, training, the financial coordinators, marketing person, all that stuff. By 2015, we were down to about 10 employees. We were up to about a third or so clear aligners. And today, again, we had 3, and we're 95+% clear aligners. Depends obviously on the month. And we have Skopek Remote and our outsourcing partners. Ortho dental monitoring we've had since 2018. So we've had most of our big outsourcing partners for about 5 years now. In that 8 years, we had about an 85% increase in our top line. I have no idea if that's really great or average, but what I do know is in 2015, I felt like we had a large, successful practice, and we've grown quite nicely since then. Our patients per day since 2015, we've gone from 67 down to 26 per day. The days worked per year, back in 2015, we were still working 197 days a year. This year, we're going to work about 142. Average total in-person appointments per treatment is about 5.5. And this includes everything. This is everything, surgery down to little 4 to 6 month touch-ups. Obviously, a surgery case takes more appointments than that. But average treatment's about 5.5 times we see them in the office. Now, I have no idea what the norm should be or the average should be on this stat. And I've asked several people, including Chris Benson, who I spoke with a couple times in the last year. But I'm starting to measure the percentage of our day that's spent with new patient exams. So this is the percent of the people we see in a day that are new patient exams. Now, in 2015, it was 6%, meaning 94% were existing patients or maintenance patients. Today, we see 18.5% of our day as new patients. And again, I don't know exactly what to think about that, except it seems like we're doing a lot better job with our new patient exams. And honestly, I'm having a lot more fun with our new patient exams because more of our day is spent with that. All right, people from the Midwest might know what this means. Usually about half the room knows what this means. So I go through this, it's like, all right, big fucking deal. Who cares, right? What does that really mean? Well, honestly, in the last 8 years, I see about a third as many patients a day. Think about seeing a third as many patients on any given day. Changes the whole atmosphere, changes your whole day. We're going to work 56 fewer days this year. I honestly am still kind of a little bit blown away by that, and I really still haven't figured out completely what I'm going to do with that. But we work a lot fewer days. My income per hour is nearly doubled. And again, that's an approximation. But I'm making a lot more money per hour that I work. And a higher percent of our day is devoted to the new patients. I'm not a doctorless guy. And again, no right or wrong, but I am not a doctorless anything guy. I'm more about being doctor efficient, and if anything, then being doctor more with that time. All right, so how do we market that? How do we keep bringing in our customers? Because you have to have a vision, you have to have a strategy to differentiate yourself. We're all different than everybody else. I mean, I'm different than the people down the street. So how do you market that? How do you get that message across? What do you do? Well, I'm going to let Steve Jobs start the discussion on this. And I love this clip. Obviously, Jobs started Apple. He was fired from Apple, and then he was brought back to Apple. And when he was brought back in the late 90s, he was brought back to save the company. Apple was in trouble in the late 90s. So this is him addressing shareholders after he was brought back to save the company. And he's taking a question from someone who didn't really like him. And he was questioning him on some technology he didn't pursue. And he said, Mr. Jobs, I don't think you're the right person for this. I don't think you know what you're doing. And why don't you tell us what you're going to do to save Apple and to bring Apple back? Here's how he answered that question.
Come up with a strategy and a vision for Apple. It started with what incredible benefits can we give to the customer? Where can we take the customer? Not starting with, let's sit down with the engineers and figure out what awesome technology we have, and then how are we going to market that?
If you ever have to give a 10-second answer for how did Apple become a multi-trillion-dollar company, I honestly think that's it. You know, where can you take your customer? You have to think about that. All these widgets and all these things are awesome, but where are you taking your customer with that? And then how do you market that to the customer? And honestly, marketing, I think, used to be simple back in the day. You know, you had internal with some contests, you had external with Yellow Pages ads, and you brought your dentist some stale donuts and some booze, and it was great. You were loving life. Now, this is what marketing looks like today, which is just ridiculous. And I need to dumb it down. I need to keep it simpler. Otherwise, I get overwhelmed with this stuff. This is, I think, one of the best quotes I've heard. And I heard this from Todd Brown, who's a marketer out of Florida a few years ago. If you market yourself by the tool or product, you become a commodity. Never market a commodity. You must have a proprietary solution. And even a few years ago, this hit me hard because I've been as guilty of this as anybody. You know, we spent a lot of years that, you know, Dr. Skopek does a lot of Invisalign. Dr. Skopek loves Invisalign. That makes me a commodity. Anybody can do that. You need to figure out what your proprietary solution is. And we all have one. I guarantee it. We all have one. Even if you don't know what it is, we're all different. We all have a proprietary solution. Now, some of ours, again, we have Skopek Remote. And with ClearCut now, we have legally trademarked this ROX operating system, which is a system to deliver our treatment to our patients. I'm not going to talk about it tonight, but if you have interest in it, you can go clearcutorthodontics.com on the website. It's laid out pretty well. There's 6 pillars to it, which is nothing earth-shattering. It's just how I put it together, but it's proprietary and trademarked. It's my proprietary solution to deliver clear aligners. And it's a pretty powerful marketing tool. And honestly, I believe we need that. We all need that, and we all need to figure that out because today, everybody can use brand X or Y. Doesn't matter. Everybody can use them. We all have great credentials, beautiful photos, can run a sale. And nowadays, everybody can call themselves top or leading or best provider. There's no metrics to that anymore. All right, so let's start summing it up a little bit. What's the future orthodontic business going to look like? Think about it in a big picture thought like this. The whole world's doing more with less. The whole world, everybody's trying to do more with less. So when we do that as an orthodontic business, we could get more time back. We could work less. We could get more personal time, or we could get more room for business growth, right? Now, personally, I absolutely hate the term growth. I think it's one of the most overused, underdefined words in any business, including ortho and dental. Growth generally means increase in top line revenue. And if you're buying a product from a company, more income to that company. We're going to grow you by getting you busier and getting you all this stuff. But you know, if your income you take home goes up 10%, you're working 2 extra days a week, you're a miserable alcoholic and your kids don't know you when you sit down to dinner, is that really growth? You have to figure out what growth is. And I really love the word scaling more than I love the word growth. Scaling is strategic, it's intentional. It's what the 4-hour work week talks about. It's about the outsourcing. And it takes into consideration your top line revenues and your expenses so you can take more home at the end of the day. So let's scale a little bit, okay? What's the future and strategic profit and loss statement or financial statement going to look like? And some of this I've taken from conversations with Chris Benson, who, again, nobody has a crystal ball, but I think he has as good a handle as most on this. I believe your outsourcing and technology expense is going to be more than double. It's really going to be triple staff expense. Staff expense used to be your biggest cost. It's not going to be anymore. Facility expense is going to decrease. You need a smaller office. You need less rent or less mortgage, less equipment, less build-out expense. Staff, lab, dental supplies, and marketing have decreased for me significantly. I put marketing in there because when we partner with people who have their own marketing budget and do a great deal of advertising or have marketing assets we can use, we don't have to spend money on that. So our marketing costs have actually decreased because we piggyback on their stuff. I think revenue per full-time equivalent is going to be around $1 million. With the efficiencies, with the outsourcing, you can do $1 million in revenue per each employee. Now, what's the future team going to look like? Future team, future staff. I think it's going to be a lot more executives, nurse practitioners, and PAs. Now, these guys are our financial executive ortho coach and our clinical executive ortho coach. They're salaried positions, not hourly. They get benefits and bonuses like an executive in a large company would get. I try to teach these guys, treat these guys like a director or executive vice president in a large company. And they're not just hourly people punching the clock. And I think that's the future of teams. We're not going to be like McDonald's where we're your best first job and then you move on to something else. This can be a career, and these guys are here for a career. And you get all this stuff together, and then opportunity sets in, which is cool. And you have to decide what you want that opportunity to be. It's different for all of us. For me, that opportunity has been, I see a third as many patients a day. I have a hell of a lot more fun every day. It's great. We work fewer days, shorter days. I've been making more money than I ever have. And I spend time with new patients. A higher percentage of our day is with new patients, which again is very weird and very contrary to what you hear from a lot of people. But it's gratifying to me to get to know that new patient, to get to know what they want. And I love that. With our extra business time, we've been scaling. Again, we opened ClearCut. I've added some staff. I want to add a doc at any time at this point, so we're recruiting docs to come into ClearCut, and it's great because we have the time now. All right, so let's go back to the quote. The entrepreneur searches for change, responds to it, and then exploits it as an opportunity. All right. Think about how you search for change. How do you search for change? I mean, you have to listen. There's no right or wrong. Even if you agree or disagree, you have to listen. You have to make time for strategic thinking. Don't be busy being busy. Do some strategic thinking. Be open-minded, creative, and figure out what you believe in and what makes sense to you. Once you figure some of that stuff out, you find some of this change, you got to respond to it. Because it's weird and you don't know what to do with it. It's confusing, it's overwhelming. And that's really just continual learning. You have to be humble enough to know you don't know everything and continually learn things. But again, never forget, and this is very important, and I don't want to be misinterpreted on this. It's not the brand, it's not the widgets, it's not this better plastic or this better RAM or gigs or whatever. It's really the people that make my practice and really what it is. It's the people that run the technology. And again, I want a smaller team. No question, I want a smaller team. But when you get that smaller team working like this, that's when the magic happens. You get a team working in sync like this, you can accomplish 1,000 times what you used to accomplish in 1/10 of the time. That's what you have to do. But as you're searching for change and as you're leaning into change, it sucks and it's hard. It's definitely hard, but not changing is hard. So choose your hard. So thanks to OrthoFi for having me back again. That's great that you guys had me back. Again, I'm not the sales guy, but I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you guys. And thanks to anybody that came. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
This has been great, Dr. Skopek, and we do have some questions. We've this evening has been great to spend some time learning from you. Some of the questions, I think you may have ended up answering a little bit later in the webinar, but we're going to go through them and maybe they'll hear something twice. But I think that's important that these are the things that people were wanting to hear about. So one of the questions is, what's the biggest challenge that you faced when you dropped to only 2 employees?
The biggest challenge is having the right 2 employees, because we had so much technology and so many outsourced partners at that point. And it's a challenge to work with. I mean, again, I'm here because I use OrthoFi and I believe in OrthoFi. It's one of our main partners, but it's a challenge to work with an outside company like OrthoFi, rather than sitting down with your financial coordinator in the office and talking about things. So we had to figure out with just 2 of us, okay, how do we get the most out of these guys and spend the less of our time doing it? We can't sit on the phone with these guys, for 5 hours a day figuring things out. So that was a challenge. And that did take some time, because you have to learn how to work together. You have to learn what your partners do, what they don't do. But once we got it going, it runs incredibly smoothly. But one of the reasons those 2 guys are salaried employees and making a ton of money is because if I lose them and I have to retrain 2 people to work with the outsourced partners, yeah, that's going to be another big challenge. So that was our biggest thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so for the people who are on the webinar tonight who are not OrthoFi customers, that's one of the things that has been just a misconception about OrthoFi. We don't, person for person replace a team member, but what you can expect is, if you have someone who's 100% of their time working insurance and financials, that their time will be about 15 to 20% of that time working with OrthoFi. So it does require someone to work with OrthoFi, but we also assign an Ortho Success Manager that works directly with your team member, and we'll have meetings once a month. So for those of you who have heard some of that and are interested in learning more, of course, we'd love to talk to you more about how OrthoFi works and can work in your practice. One of the questions is that current data, and we've seen this a lot, that current data shows that starts are down, but yet your new patient exams have increased significantly in the last 5 years. So what do you attribute that to?
I attribute that 100% to the fact that we have a brand. And it's interesting, and that's why I like showing the Steve Jobs clip, because we are known for something. We don't get everybody in this community, but we're known for something around here. We're known for a convenient experience. We're known for a comfortable experience. And we spent some time building that brand. We're just not another orthodontist in town. We have our own proprietary, unique brand. And people look for that. We're not competing with every other orthodontist in the area, and we're in a populated suburb of Chicago. but we spend time building our brand. I think everybody needs to spend time building their brand and their proprietary solution.
Yeah, I listened to, I believe it was Dan Bills that does a webinar and a presentation specifically about brand as well. And I think it's something a lot of orthodontic practices don't put a lot of time into thinking about, does everything look the same? Do we have a consistent image that we're portraying to the public? So that's a great answer to that question, because I'm sure that makes a huge difference. So we've also seen, and everyone on this call has seen, the economic uncertainty that's, hitting all of us right now. And so how are you navigating that, with two businesses and the fear of what's to come? Like, how are you navigating this over the last couple of years?
The model that we've developed is such low fixed costs that, and that's the thing with the outsourced partners, because like, for example, I don't have an Invisalign bill if I don't start patients. I don't pay Orthofy their fee unless I start patients and we have that money. I don't pay dental monitoring a fee unless we're actually monitoring new patients. So for me, I've reduced my fixed costs so much. I mean, you used to have that big payroll. When we had that too, you can't reduce your payroll. So if you have a slow month, you still have a big payroll. But the economic uncertainty is so much easier for me now because my fixed costs are so much lower.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so well, awesome. So there is a question here, and I'm interested to hear the answer to this too, because I always think about this when I hear you speak. You're such an innovator, and you really tackle challenge and change. So what do you contribute as kind of your inspiration to make you continue to innovate and embrace change?
It's interesting because we just had this conversation. I was with some other Invisalign people. I think, first of all, you have to be humble to know that you don't know everything and you're continually learning. I've never thought I was the best at anything. I still don't believe I mean, it's very nice of you to say, but I still don't believe I'm like a leading innovator of anything, because I'm continually trying to learn stuff. And I'm continually thinking, ooh, I was an idiot last month. Now I'm doing better. So it's about being humble. It's about continually learning, continually trying to get better. And you're never on top. You're never on the top of that mountain. You got to always keep shooting more free throws. You always got to keep running more laps. You always got to keep trying to get better.
Okay, and so that's for you and for also your team. So you talked a little bit about your team and the ortho office of the future. That's actually a topic that we're going to address in our Nexus meeting. So it's fascinating that you brought that up, because I know you and I have not had this discussion, but we're going to be talking at Nexus next year a little bit about the ortho office of future. So, you mentioned, having officers, like, that they have higher paying roles. And what are you looking for specifically, like qualities or, what their skill set when you're looking for these teams?
I'm looking for people that are excited about what we're doing. When we started this whole journey about, the clear aligners, remote monitoring, and we just hired a new person about a month ago. First thing we do is start talking to them about what we're doing. And you can tell by looking in their face if, yeah, whatever, I don't, or if they're, wow, that's cool. Wow, that's awesome. I look for the excitement and the enthusiasm about our vision and our business model and what we do. As long as they're excited about it, they're going to do great at it. And once they become the executives and they're salaried, it's someone that wants a career. And it's not like, well, maybe next year I'll do this, or I think I might do this. Like, no, this is great. I love this. I want to do this as my career. And our people, again, are very well paid for they have a career. And the bonuses are very good when we have a good quarter. So that's really, I don't look for skill sets so much. I look for the enthusiasm, the excitement about what we do.
Yeah, that's great. We'll be maybe picking your brain a little bit as we prep for Nexus again. So you mentioned that you have the private practice and the clear cut office, so two separate practices. So how do those interact with each other? Are you using the same team? Like what does that model look like?
We are figuring that out. And at some point, I would love to come back and do a clear cut presentation, because it's just a little over a year it's been open. The goal with clear cut, it's a completely different company. It's a completely different practice. The goal is to scale clear cut into other locations with other doctors. At this point, I'm just taking one person or so the day that we're up there from who we have. We have not hired any new staff. But it's completely a separate entity, a separate company, a separate business than Skopek.
Okay, that's interesting. I was wondering that myself. So I know you are an OrthoFi customer, and we're out of those questions right now, but would love to hear for the audience here who's not OrthoFi customers, what has been your favorite thing about working with OrthoFi, and how has OrthoFi helped you to grow those practices?
Well, again, the thing for us with OrthoFi is, and I've eliminated employees with it, and I know that you can't promise that, but I've eliminated 2 employees with it. So first and foremost, that has helped me a lot with the outsourcing. Now, the other thing that again would be a whole nother presentation is we use OrthoFi for our recall system. And I was talking to our, treatment coordinator basically, and she said, yeah, I'd start my day with OrthoFi and end my day with OrthoFi. And she does and again, she would describe it better than me, but there's the needs attention and the other list. So she has everything on there, people that are due, for recalls that are under observation, people that we maybe saw for an exam last week that said, call me next week. She starts her day with that OrthoFi list and ends it. And the recall system, I think, has been an Achilles heel with Ortho forever. I've been trying to work on that for 20 years. So that's helped us a lot with that. And beyond just eliminating the financial people, I think that's a big benefit that not a lot of people even use or know about. And honestly, she figured that out.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what she does. I didn't even really know it was there. I mean, she figured out how to use it for that.
Yeah, that is a big benefit to OrthoFi. The treatment coordinators are using it day in and day out to present treatment, but we all know that and with the goal of a same day start, but not everyone's going to start the same day. And so if you don't have good systems in place to follow up, and OrthoFi really helps you to put those in place so that the follow-up is good. So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that out to our listeners. That's the end of our questions. I would love for Alan, if you don't mind, put the slide up that we want to end with before we say goodbye to Dr. Skopek. Want to point out a couple things to our guest. So we have talked a little bit about OrthoFi tonight, and we would love, if you're not currently an OrthoFi customer, we'd love to work with you. If you'll scan this QR code and just sign up for a demo. If you do end up setting up for OrthoFi after this webinar, you'll get $2,000 off your setup, and the first 3 practices will actually get a full 50% off. So that's a $4,000 value. Also, I did mention Nexus. And so, Alan, if you go to the next screen, this is a QR code to sign up for Nexus. We'll have speakers, that will present on topics like Dr. Skopek has tonight. We would love for you to join us, whether you're an OrthoFi customer or not. This is, it started out as an OrthoFi user meeting, but it's over the years, it's really grown into a fantastic business meeting where we share, consultants will share, some doctors will share, and we really dive in. We have tracks specific to the doctor, tracks specific to the treatment coordinators. So lots to learn there. So I do hope you'll join us for that. Dr. Skopek, thank you again so much for your time tonight. As always, it's been a real learning experience, and we'll look forward to the next time. And thank you to the audience that has joined us tonight. We hope you'll be back with us. I think our next webinar is in November. Thank you so much. Bye, Dr. Skopek.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.